Hello everybody and welcome back to World of Warships Legends. My name is Spartan Elite 43 and tonight we are waiting for the download of the new update. So, with that being said, I figured why not make a video on all of the frequently asked questions that I get asked all the time, whether it in streams, in the comments, people sending me messages on my Xbox. I get asked a lot of questions, but here are the 15 most asked questions that I get. First of all, when are carriers coming to Legends? I've explained this multiple times, but I figured it should be the #1 question on the thing, and that is, carriers will not come to Legends unless they can actually manage to balance it on PC to the point where carriers are enjoying the way they play, and the people are enjoying having carriers in the game, or at least not being completely miserable by them. So they're not going to bring them to console unless that happens. They said that at the earliest it would be the end of 2020. And like I said, unless they come up with some miracle patch to balance them on PC, they are not going to end up coming to console. Moving on, we've got #2, we have, I'm new, what should I do? Well, if you're new to the game, here's my #1 thing that I recommend you do. Play all nations, all classes, up to tier 4. Takes no time at all to get a nation, or to get a class up to a tier 4. Literally no time. Even playing with no premium, you should be able to do that pretty easily. So play each one up to tier 4. Each class up to tier 4. By the time that you get through your first nation to tier 4, which I always start with the nation that I'm in. Maybe you're in a nation that isn't in the game yet. In that case, pick one that you enjoy looking at. You know, that sort of thing. And then just go from there. You'll find which class that you prefer pretty easily. You'll figure that out pretty quick. And then you can research which nations fit your playstyle for that class that you enjoy the most. And then once you figure that out, the rest is easy. So that is what I always recommend. Play every nation, every class up to tier 4. And then by the time you get to that point, then you can start like actually breaking down, getting into the commander builds and all of that stuff. But up to tier 4 is pretty easy to get, and everybody should be able to do that pretty quickly. Is Yamato ever coming back? The answer is, as far as I know, yes. They said that it will be coming, the Legends tier will be coming out this year. And I have not heard that it's been pushed back or it's not coming. So I am assuming at this point, moving forward, and by the way, the date is 4/13/2020. Or for you folks across the pond that do your dates differently, it's 13/4/2020. How about that? Anyway, the Legends tier is supposed to come out this year. Now, the last I had heard, it was supposed to be summer of 2020. So, as far as I know, that's still on. I have not heard any differently from that. So, moving on, we've got, what do I use to record? Well, there's a few things that I get into, and one of them is my Elgato capture card. If you're just starting your channel, I recommend an Elgato HD60. It's pretty cheap. You can usually pick it up for about $100, maybe less than that, because there's a lot other ones out there. You can get any brand you want. Elgato's really reliable, super easy to use, and it has a lot of good features like flashback recording, which means you don't have to sit there and record everything you do. If you have a good game, you can simply rewind and record from the beginning of that game. So Elgato HD60, great place to start. For those of you who really want to get into 4K recording, that's where it gets a little bit more complex. I have an Elgato 4K 60 capture card. You guys, the people who watch my channel, helped pay for that, and I appreciate you. And by help, I mean you guys literally paid for that. Before 2019, it was end of 2018, you guys helped me with that, and I appreciate it because it has skyrocketed the channel ridiculously, and I knew it would. So 4K video recording in 60 frames per second is what we're allowed to do with this capture card. And then on top of that, the Elgato beta 4K 60 recording software that they have you download isn't very good currently. It's still in beta. It's not very good compared to their old recording for the HD60, which is really good. It didn't work very well, even with my beefy computer that I ended up buying. So I ended up downloading a free program, which anybody can download, called OBS, or Open Broadcast Software. OBS is an amazing platform. It's free to use. You just download it. You got to set it up. It's a little bit iffy to set up when you first start out, but once you figure out all the settings and stuff, really not that difficult to get started. And then you can record, and I record my 4K 60 right there on the OBS using my Elgato HD60, and then I use Premiere Pro to change it, or to edit and narrate it. Now I have to use DaVinci Resolve to pre-render my videos, because for whatever reason Premiere Pro stopped working with OBS recorded MP4s. So I go ahead, I use DaVinci Resolve, which is another free-to-use program, to pre-render my OBS video so that I can use it in Premiere Pro to actually edit and do all the things that I need to do. Premiere Pro you actually have to pay for. I believe it's $20 a month or something like that, so it's kind of expensive. Now, moving on, what is the best class of ship? Now, this is something that anybody, no matter what you are, they all have their opinions on. Personally, I'm a battleship guy. I prefer battleships. However, that's the best part of the game, is it doesn't matter what the best class of ship is, because everybody has their own best class. Like, some folks really enjoy battleships and really absolutely excel in battleships. Some folks really enjoy destroyers and absolutely excel in destroyers. And some folks are absolutely legends in cruisers, and that's what they enjoy the most. So depending on who you ask, it's going to change. Personally, I prefer battleships, but you know, your mileage may vary. What is the best nation for each class? Now, this is an interesting question, because this is, again, all opinion. Okay, so personally, I prefer American battleships, and there's a lot of reasons for that. We won't go into each of it, but personally, I prefer American battleships. However, the French battleships, with you know, Jean Bart being the #1, because it's a premium that's ridiculous. The Richelieu coming in #2 for the French. Richelieu also ridiculous, but it's the tech tree equivalent, and still a very, very good ship. They are at least rivaling the Iowa, and I prefer the Iowa in literally every situation that a battleship can get in, with the exception of dodging torpedoes, because that's what it's very bad at. Now, what is the best nation for cruisers? Now, again, my opinion, the best cruiser in the game is still the Baltimore. It has better penetration angles than any other cruiser in the game, allowing for the best chances to citadel even battleships with armor piercing from a cruiser. However, there are arguments to be made for the Mogami being an amazing fire starter, also having long-range torpedoes, even though the torpedo firing angles are not great. The Mogami is a very good ship, don't get me wrong. Then you also have the Hipper, which I enjoy the Hipper. I really do. I enjoy the Hipper. The only issue is the German armor piercing isn't as good as the American armor piercing. But it has torpedoes, and it has lots of them. I believe it has 6 per side of the ship, so it's very, very dangerous inside of 6 kilometers. And it has turtle black armor, which I don't believe any other cruiser has in the game currently. So there is... And then you've got French cruisers out there too, and they're like, oh, don't forget about us, we're fire starters and we've got engine boost. Good luck. Anyway, so you can see where it's really opinionated. Personally, I prefer the Baltimore of all the cruisers. And, you know, and it changes massively mid-tiers too. Like, if you get into Tier 3 and Tier 4s, there is a lot of variation in what people use, and I still prefer the Americans, the Omaha, the Marblehead, the Phoenix, all fantastic armor-piercing devastators at low tiers to mid-tiers. And then the American cruisers kind of fall off with the Pensacola. Not that it's not a good ship, but it gets citadeled so easily. And then you go into the, you know, the New Orleans, which is a step up from the Pensacola, which is nice, and then the Baltimore is just the pinnacle. I really enjoy the Baltimore. And then for destroyers, it all depends on your playstyle. I prefer a general purpose destroyer that's good at everything and has the ability to get out of trouble, which is why I enjoy the Lightning so much, which is the Tier 7 British destroyer. But for just like sheer, I'm gonna hide, that is definitely going to be your Japanese destroyers. They have the longest range torpedoes, they have the hardest hitting torpedoes, and they also have the best detection as far as concealment. So you're not able to be detected until you want to be detected, essentially. And then the Germans are very good versus other destroyers. They have hydroacoustic, which, by the way, the Lightning has as well. But the German hydroacoustic is able to spot ships further away. Plus, on top of that, you've got the higher caliber guns, and you have better armor and better hit points, which means it's very good against other destroyers. So, with all of that in mind, the destroyers is the one class where I'm fairly confident no matter what line that you pick, once you get to the top, you're going to enjoy yourself. There are a few along the way that are exceptional, but for the most part, you can play any Tier 7 destroyer and enjoy yourself. With the Fletcher coming in towards the bottom, even though I love the Fletcher, don't get me wrong, versus other destroyers, it absolutely wrecks people. But that concealment rating is just horrendous, and you have to, and on top of that, you only have the 9-kilometer torpedoes, which means you're very likely to be detected when you're launching torpedoes. So just keep that in mind. Alright, so moving on. Why can't I make credits at Tier 7? And that is simple. One is you're not using premium. Okay? If you're not using premium, that's not necessarily your fault, but it is definitely a reason that you're not making credits. This game is a pay-to-play, it's a free-to-play / I need to get money out of people somehow, so let's charge them, extra at high tiers. But the other thing is, maybe you're just not doing enough at Tier 7 to earn money. Now, even without premium, with premium, you're probably making money at Tier 7. Without it, you're going to struggle, with the exception of when you have good games. If you're getting over 120,000 damage in a game, you're probably not losing money. It's not impossible to lose money, but it's improbable. So moving on from that, what is my favorite ship? The Iowa, hands down. No ifs, ands, or buts. My favorite ship is still the Iowa. What about French destroyers? I have not heard anything about when French destroyers are going to be introduced to the game. We do have the Les Terribles, but other than that, we have no other French destroyers currently that I can think of, and I have not heard any more about when they plan to introduce them. 10. Can I post my stats? I will do this in the next live stream, so look out for it Wednesday, most likely. But yeah, I will do that. It's not that big a deal for me. I'm not a great player. I'm above average at best, so I don't have a problem posting my stats. It doesn't bother me a bit. How do I get better at aiming? Well, practice makes perfect. That's all you can do. Now, I've shown a couple different times when you're shooting at people how to lead different targets at different distances, depending on the class of the ship and that sort of thing. But really, it just comes down to the more you do something, the more likely you are to get better at it. Now, we're coming up on the end of the game clip, so I apologize. I kind of got a little bit talked into there, but I want to go through and get some the rest of these real quick. So when should I shoot HE or AP? Generally speaking, AP is for broadside targets, HE is for everything else. However, it also depends on what you're in, what the caliber gun you're using, and all of that stuff. Depending, if you're a battleship, most of the time you're going to be firing AP. Just because your AP is so good, it'll be able to get damage, good, consistent damage, no matter what the angle is. And then it has the ability to delete people when they go broadside on in front of you. Whereas HE is very good for cruisers and destroyers because they have the smaller caliber guns, so it's very good for setting fires and getting damage over time and breaking secondaries and doing all of the good things that you need for weakening enemies over time. Now, how to deal with fire starters as a battleship captain? Well, this is a two-pronged attack. You can either go full tank build, which is go into get your commander that has the tank build set up, which every nation has a tank build and a dispersion build captain for their battleships. And you'll know these. If you don't, go over to my my guide videos. I have guide videos for each nation's captains, and it'll literally go over every perk and what they're useful for. So if that's what you're looking for, jump over to that. I've got an entire playlist devoted to guide videos. Now, The other way you can do it, if you're not going to go full tank build, is you can change a couple things out instead of using propulsion mod. I believe there's a mod for damage control there that you can use. I could be wrong, but I think there is. And then the other thing is on your dispersion build, the last perk, instead of going for that extra range, you can go for the damage con ability there, which is something that I've changed up recently, and that helps even dispersion builds deal with the fire starters a little bit better. But the other thing, the third part that you need to start doing more often is using the terrain, okay? Cruisers have had to do this since the beginning. If they didn't use terrain, they die, because the first time somebody looks at them, they usually get hit and deleted. But if you use the terrain, you can block most of the time. Not always. Sometimes the shells are coming from so far out and so high up that they can actually arc over the top of the mountains. But for the most part, you can use the islands as cover, poke your nose out, and shoot at people just by poking the nose of your ship out. Okay? And what that'll do is that means, yeah, even if they set fires, they can't set multiple fires on the same section of the ship. You can only set one fire per section of the ship, with the superstructure counting for 2 fires, depending on your perks. If you've got the perk that limits you to 3 fires, then the superstructure can only be set on fire once, and it's just one big fire. If you've got the perk that, or if you don't have that perk, then you can be set on fire 4 times, with one being in the bow, one being in the forward superstructure, one being in the aft superstructure, one being at the stern of the ship. So you can be set on fire 4 places at a time. And if you don't have the perk to deal with that, then you can really lose a lot of damage. But damage saturation is a thing. So if you're poking the nose of your ship out past the island to get shots on people, then that limits how much damage they can do back to you, as well as how many fires they can set on you. 1 fire for a battleship is nothing. We can heal all that back pretty easily. 2 fires starts to get dodgy. 3 fires is deadly. 4 fires, you've got no chance. So just keep that in mind. How do you dodge torpedoes? First of all, you got to know who has torpedoes, where they're at, and what you got to do to dodge them. Okay? That sounds like the same thing that you just asked me, but in reality, it's pretty simple. Okay? Who has torpedoes? There are 3 battleships in the game currently that have torpedoes. Most of the cruisers, with the exception of the Americans, have torpedoes. And then all of the destroyers have torpedoes. Now, this is where getting into the game and being more used to what you're looking at each game comes in handy. Learn everybody's ships, and this is why I say play everything. Play all the classes. Whether you like it or not, you will learn so much about what you're facing in everything. So, say you're a battleship captain like I am. Okay, you're a battleship captain, you get into a destroyer. Why? You're not very good at it, but you get into a destroyer for one reason. Learn patterns of what destroyers do. Okay, that's what you do. Okay, I'm in a destroyer. What do I need to do? I need to be sneaky. I need to try to get close to the battleships without them detecting me to launch my torpedoes. How am I going to lead the ships? What are they doing to avoid torpedoes? That sort of thing. And that will help you know what they are doing when you're in the battleship to have to dodge them, and it just takes time. This game is all about grinding. You have to put in the time if you want to get better. I am no exception. I've always said that I'm not the greatest player in the world. I just enjoy the game. I like making the videos for you guys. So, dodging torpedoes means knowing who has torpedoes, where are they in relation to you, and you need to start making sure that when they are in a position to possibly launch torpedoes at you, that you're adjusting course. You're not sailing in a straight line. Whenever possible, try to bow tank or stern tank them. Kite away from them or kite towards them. Kiting away is the number one way to dodge torpedoes, because A, it means that you're harder to hit because you're a smaller profile. B, you're sailing away, which means it takes longer for the torps to get to you, which means most of the time they're going to run out of torp range. The torpedoes will not reach you in time. And the third thing is, because you're sailing away, you can see the gaps in the torpedoes as they approach, and you can try to find the one that is most likely to get you out of trouble, or take the shortest amount of damage. So you take 1 torpedo instead of 4, that sort of thing. So that's my tips on dodging torpedoes. And finally, the last question is, are you going to play World of Warships on PC? Now, I've brought this up a few times. I played PC way back in the day, but my computer was terrible, and I was even worse because I suck on mouse and keyboard. I'm literally the worst on mouse and keyboard, which is why I play console. So yes, there is a possibility that I am considering going to PC, but there's a lot that I have to do in order to do that, which is I've got to get something so that I have something to put my keyboard and mouse on, because currently I'm sitting on my bed and, it doesn't exactly, it's not conducive to gameplay so much. But B, the other side of it is I'm just terrible on mouse and keyboard, and getting up against people who've been playing the game for years, you've really got to know what you're doing, and every slip up equals death usually. So keep that in mind. But I am considering it. I don't know when it'll happen, if it'll happen, but appreciate everybody dropping by. I apologize, this went a lot longer than the video clip itself. I really do. And if you like what I'm doing, punch the like button, leave a comment below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and as always, I will see you in the next video.